Lovely. When I first got the message that we were going to do the Four Noble Truths, I was like, okay, you can do the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. But I just wanted to jump into the fourth right away, the Eightfold Path. And I was thinking of all the Buddhas and all the different things that would embody the Eightfold Path. So I chose somebody who is not Buddhist for my person who embodies the Eightfold Path. And then I looked online for confirmation bias for someone who would agree with me. So I found out that according to Jennifer Keeshan Armstrong, who writes for Lion's Roar, Fred Rogers embodies the Eightfold Path. I think of kindness, compassion, and gentleness. And I think of the Buddhas that stay. They stay to help others attain enlightenment. And instead of moving on. And those are the effective means of helping me attain enlightenment. Humility, kindness, compassion, gentleness, and Fred Rogers did that. Fred Rogers, for those of you who don't know, is a guy named Mr. Rogers. For those of you who are very, very young, he was on PBS, and if you ever want to, you can take a look at him. I'm going to start with a quote by him. If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you never dream of. There is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. And I feel that that story, that quote deeply. I think it's beautiful. I gotta push my password on my own personal iPad because I have a few things I want to read off of here. Once upon a time, a little boy loved a stuffed animal whose name was Old Rabbit. It was so old, in fact, that it was really an unstuffed animal. So old that even back then, with the little boy's brain still nice and fresh, he had no memory of it as young rabbit, or even rabbit. So old that Old Rabbit was barely a rabbit at all, but rather a greasy hunk of skin without eyes and ears, with a single red stitch where its tongue used to be. The little boy didn't know why he loved Old Rabbit. He just did. And the night he threw it out the car window was the night he learned how to pray. He would grow up and become a great prayer, this little boy, but only intermittently, only fitfully, praying only when fear and desperation drove him to it. And the night he threw out Old Rabbit into the darkness was the night that set the pattern, the night that taught him how. He prayed for Old Rabbit's safe return, and when hours later his mother and father came home with the filthy, precious strip of rabbity roadkill, he learned not only that prayers are sometimes answered, but also the kind of severe effort they entail, the endless frantic summoning. And so when he threw Old Rabbit out the car window the next time, it was gone for good. So that is a story from a person who wrote this article. He was talking to Mr. Rogers. He got to go to his place after Mr. Rogers' nap. Takes a nap every afternoon. That sounds awesome. And he was trying to get Mr. Rogers to talk about himself and to get personal so he could really get down and talk with Mr. Rogers, right? So he asked Mr. Rogers about all the puppets he played with as a child and that he ended up using in his show later on when he had Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So he talked about his puppets for a while, but then he stopped and asked, "And what about you, Tom? Did you have any special friends growing up?" "Special friends?" "Yes," he said, "maybe a puppet or a special toy, or maybe just a stuffed animal you loved very much. Did you have a special friend like that, Tom?" "Yes, Mr. Rogers." "Did your special friend have a name, Tom?" "Yes, Mr. Rogers. His name was Old Rabbit." "Old Rabbit. Oh, and I'll bet the two of you were together since he was a very young rabbit." So that was the conversation and why he brought up Old Rabbit. Later on, Tom and Mr. Rogers talked about when he'd gone to LA to visit a child with cerebral palsy. And Mr. Rogers talked about their meeting and said he had asked the child, who was very happy to see him. The child could not come out to Pittsburgh, where Mr. Rogers filmed his show, to visit him. So he came out to LA to visit him. And he asked this child, to pray for him. And Tom thought, well, that's a neat trick. Mr. Rogers is, trying to trick this kid into helping himself by asking him to pray for, Mr. Rogers, him. Mr. Rogers answers, "Oh, heavens no, Tom. I didn't ask for his prayers for him. I asked for them for me. I asked him because I think that anyone who has gone through challenge that difficult must be very close to God. I asked him because I wanted intercession." And I really, really honestly believe that Mr. Rogers had a deep, deep understanding of people and of how we function and of reality. And he's right. All of us in this room, most of us have had trauma that drove us to insanity and addiction. But that very same thing can cause our awakening. It's like in Soto Zen, awakening can be like that, very sudden. Our understanding, if we can look at our trauma and our challenges and our struggles, our addictions, our mental health stuff, and still come to a place where we desire love and peace for everybody, that we can say, may all beings be happy and peaceful. May all beings be healthy and strong. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings live with ease, with all of our awareness and all of our intentions, and with pure hopes for goodness for the entire universe. Then that truly brings us closer to that place of enlightenment. There would be no need for liberation without suffering. And the Eightfold Path is centered on that compassion and those effective skills. Another big reason why I love Mr. Rogers is Mr. Rogers liked to sing. And one of my skillful activities is I will chant or I will sing. And he has all these songs for children. Songs like It's You I Like, Everybody's Fancy. It's such a good feeling. Many ways to say I love you. Won't you be my neighbor? And they all have divine messages. And they all speak of deep, deep truths. Mr. Rogers was not lying to us, those of us who saw him as a child when he sang these songs. And he was a tricky guy, because I thought I hated Mr. Rogers. I'd see him and I'd want to turn the TV station. And he would be on all the way till the end. I don't know how he did that, but I just kind of stuck with him. Another story about Mr. Rogers is once he was in New York City, and he is going to a meeting. It began to rain, and he didn't have a coat, so he decided to charge into the subway to get to where he was going. And he came into a train that was filled with Black and Hispanic children who were going to school. And they saw Mr. Rogers. And they didn't bother him for autographs or tried to talk to him or anything, but they noticed him right away. But instead, they broke into song and sang, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I'm going to not sing, but read, Won't You Be My Neighbor? It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. It's a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Neighbor is a big word. A loaded word. Many of us here, myself included, have chosen to walk away, in my case, over time, gently from Christianity. But Jesus said all of the laws, all of the rules could be summed up in 2 commandments. And one of them was, love your neighbor as yourself. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree, could have chosen then to just move on to that realm and stay in that realm by himself, that realm of awakening. And felt the need and the desire, maybe even the debt, to be a neighbor. I don't believe that Buddha ever thought he was better than anyone else, because he knew everyone could be at that place where he was. So instead of chanting tonight, I'd just love for us just to spend 3 minutes sitting in silence. And if you can't follow your breath well, maybe you can just remember your stuffed animal I think when we loved our stuffed animals, we were really loving ourselves. So just sit in that warmth if that helps too. And I'll time our 3 minutes. Namaste.
And instead just Gesundheit or you're welcome. So that's my reframe for y'all. All right, back to you, John.
Anyways, let's get ready for the dedication of merit. May we be happy and peaceful. May we be healthy and strong. May we be safe and protected. May we live with ease. Namaste.
Hey Josh, before you take off this evening,